Well, I'm off to Westcourt, wonderful Westcourt up the road, to pick up a mouse that I bought through eBay. I just left a message with another thing I bought at eBay, which was an adapter for those old-fashioned plugs that go in the back of your PC for your keyboard and your mouse, and it turns into a USB connector. But the trouble is it didn't work, so I had to send them a message. It's very cheap, but still it's annoying when you buy something and it doesn't work. So I don't know what happened about that. But yeah, so I'm just heading up the road. And I could take a free bus. There's one over there right now. But I need the exercise, so it's a decent hike. And it's just good to get out of the house anyway. So I'm not overly concerned about catching the old corona. I think it's highly unlikely it's going to happen up here especially. I mean, I don't take stupid risks, but I'm not going to be losing sleep over it. I don't know why the actual mouse wasn't just delivered to my door. Sometimes they do that, Australia Post, and other times they don't. And my understanding is they're supposed to always at least make an attempt, but I've had times where people have just have left stuff on my doorstep and they've knocked and I haven't even been able to hear them because they tap so lightly, so it's pretty useless. So and I think a lot of them just don't give a damn. They'll just leave a note there on the assumption that they've actually tried to go up to my door, but of course they haven't. They just slack. But it's okay as long as the head of Australia Post, I think, who used to be a what was the name of the company? It's a company who got shares in, so we should know the bloody name of it. Anyway, she was an executive there. Now she's got the highest paid Australian public servant. So I don't think it's performance based, because I don't see Australia Post being amazingly better than what they were. However, that's the public service for you. They seem to be coronavirus free as well, and nothing affects them, just everybody else. So the poor old private sector's taking a beating at the moment, but public sector, it just keeps growing and growing. It's so bad, in fact, that they're so clueless that they're actually asking for pay increases during there's a crisis like this, and that happened with the Queensland Public Service. I don't think much of the Premier here, Palaszczuk, but she did have the common sense to at least knock that one down, because that would have been really bad PR to have people getting pay increases during a crisis that people just can't even keep their jobs. So it's not good. Yeah, plenty of buses around. They're doing a decent trade. It's been quite busy. But like I said, I just want to get out and about and have a bit of a walk. Yeah, just saw another SpaceX mission successfully completed this morning. Watched it online. They actually deployed another 60 Starlink satellites, and this is sort of Musk's cash cow eventually, that's going to provide internet over the air to North America initially. He's must be about the fourth flight, I think, he's sent up there, so he's going to have thousands of these things eventually. So it's going to take a while because there's only 60 in each launch. But he also was able to get the main rocket back. It landed on the barge floating out in the Atlantic Ocean, and he got that back in one piece, and had already flown 4 missions. So he's trying that reusability. He's had last couple of times he hasn't been able to retrieve the booster, but this time everything went perfectly, so that was good. And in the meantime, they're still working on the SN4, which is the new Starship prototype, and looks as though that's going to be moved to the launch platform in the next few hours. And they're going to do another pressure test. That's the nail biter, because that's where it's failed in the past and ended up with a crushed tank. So hopefully that'll go okay, and then we might actually see a static fire and then a hop. So that'd be great, because that means we're actually making some real progress towards the new next generation Starship. So a lot of things happening. We were supposed to have his big battery day regarding Tesla this month, but that's been put off for at least a month. So given the coronavirus stuff, but I think things are starting to get more back to normal in America. Just hoping that there aren't too many, that we don't have a whole lot of new cases spring up once things are relaxed a bit. So that's the major concern now. So hopefully not. Up here everything seems to be much more normal than it was, as I mentioned yesterday, so that's a good sign. How much damage is done to the economy, who knows at this stage, but I just saw a report on China, and there's a lot of factories that have got no orders now because, especially in the south, I guess in the Guangdong region, old Canton area, where a lot of that development first took place for the export push. Apparently 80% of the demand is foreign, and it's just dried up. So they're hurting really badly, and basically the Chinese economy is going to contract. And on top of that, there's a lot of military tension in the South China Sea right now. The US is moving ships in there, and this could end up being a major flashpoint. So yeah, things are getting precarious, but I still believe that there could be an internal revolution in China. When people start losing jobs en masse, you know, things can get very nasty. All right, got the mouse from Australia Post, so that's good. Just got to head back. I think it actually takes me about a quarter of an hour to get up here. There's the plaza. It's pretty quiet today, and not a bad day. What, they're going to hit me for copyright infringement for this background music again? Anything is possible in this litigious world we live in. Anyway, yeah, not that many cars in the car park either. Not as busy as yesterday. That was crazy, especially Dan Murphy's. That was amazing. The demand for grog has been quite high, and I'm not surprised, because I think people would be down in the dumps a bit about staying at home a lot. There's no surprise at all there. Well, there's also an apocryphal report from the UN, of course, about there's going to be mass starvation because of the coronavirus. But I don't really hold much with what the UN says.
How dare you!
I think it's not a very reliable source. Remember, the UN gave us the World Health Organization, which ain't that brilliant. Now, what I was going to say about the migrants was that in Singapore, this is relating to the second wave of infections that can occur with corona. They found, I think, about 960 something out of 1,000 new cases of corona were amongst their migrant workers. So, yeah, the ones doing the menial tasks there. And I'm just thinking, imagine what would happen to somewhere like Qatar or United Arab Emirates if they couldn't use the migrant labour that's been basically propping them up for so many years. They'd be basically stuffed, and it's a real issue. But it's it's a double whammy with them, because oil has fallen through the floor price-wise, and there's no aircraft traffic, international aircraft traffic. They're two big earners. They've put money into other things as well, but they'll still be very, very vulnerable to those sorts of fluctuations. Yeah, I've had a lot of problems with technology the last couple of days too. Like I said, that little adapter I bought is absolutely useless for a USB adapter, and the mouse died on me yesterday, so it's great that this one's turned up, but it actually has taken a few days after the estimated delivery time for it to arrive. But that's typical Cairns. We tend to get very slow mail up here, so that's why I didn't bother contacting the seller until I gave it a few more days. And of course it did show up, and they didn't get me to sign either. I thought that would be the case. So there's a few things that have changed. Trying to cut down on all contact. So yeah, see how that all goes. Trying to stop touching myself on the face, but it's very difficult. and I did something rather silly then to just chewed my nail, and that's something you shouldn't do while you're walking around like this. But I only thought about it after the event, so it's a bit late now. So you've got to be really vigilant to cut back on exposure. Like I say, very low risk of contracting the virus up here anyway. So that's the good news. Although they had an outbreak at the hospital. They had a number of cases flare up, which is not a good look. I think they've worked out who it was, and they're on top of it now. But you know, this is the thing, that hospitals can be quite dangerous for contracting viruses and infections and the like. So that's another thing to keep in mind. The conclusion now is that if you go for outdoor activities like I'm doing right now, walking and what have you, very low risk, because you've got airflow around you and what have you. Where it's dangerous is when people are confined in small spaces, and that might again explain why Cairns has had a low rate, because it's a very outdoorsy sort of lifestyle type place. So that may explain a bit of it. Yeah, but I mean, things like this is going back to someone like Daniel Andrews. I think it's a real screw up, and I think his day will come when the Victorian economy tanks. He's going to try again to do it through construction is the way out. He's going to try to get a huge boost in the construction industry. I think it's just a way for him to get his mates in the union, the construction union, to get cushy jobs. They do these projects at inflated prices. In the long term, it'll become unsustainable. That's how I see it anyway. That's another thing about our manufacturing industry in Australia. Getting it back to Australia, you can do it if you use robotics and very few people, because the labour cost in manufacturing in Oz is very high and makes it uncompetitive. And there's the other one you've got to worry about, are the teachers. The teacher unions are doing their darndest to keep the students out of school. I mean, they're obviously cause headaches for teachers, so the easiest way is to basically use Corona as an excuse to delay them coming in. And of course the state government's just bending over backwards to them. They don't seem to care, and that's why they come up with these ridiculously slow transitions back to normal classrooms. I think education in Australia is in real trouble, and I think again Melbourne is going to take the brunt of it with all the lack of those Asian students coming in. They're going to hit it. It's going to be really hurting their tertiary institutions, and maybe as also Sydney, but to a lesser extent. I think Melbourne's put much more into attracting international students than anywhere else, and it's going to really feel it. But you know, Daniel Andrews saying you can't play golf, I mean, that's just ridiculous. One of the probably best things you can do is get out and about like that, unless the course is actually crowded, but it can't be. They've got protocols already for distancing, because you know you're not lobbing golf balls around, which are dangerous projectiles. So just ridiculous garbage we're getting from a lot of people, and my opinion of leadership in this country is pretty low, and I think we could be served a lot better. But you know, if we just had common sense people in power, rather than people who look at opinion polls and go with focus groups and listen to pressure groups rather than average Australians, really annoys me. Hopefully things will improve, but I'm afraid my own generation's got a lot to answer for, because baby boomers are in power at the moment to a large extent, and I think they've stuffed a lot of things up and they made it hard for the next generation. And I've got nothing to gain from saying that, because I'm in the baby boomer generation, so I've been one of the recipients of all the largesse. But I think it's really rough on the next generation coming through, and it's no wonder that they're more conservative than baby boomers. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you, or entertainment or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great. But please don't ignore me. That's the worst thing you can do on YouTube, is be ignored.